We're going to start these lessons off by talking about the modes of the major scale. The modes have been used for centuries as a compositional tool and more recently as a means for improvising. The modes of the major scale are closely related to the chords of the major scale. In previous lessons, we've learned how to harmonize the major scale, which gives us a group of chords based on the notes of the scale. The first chord when harmonizing the major scale is a major chord. If we do this in the key of C, the first chord would be a C major chord. If I play a C major scale over a C major chord, it sounds great. No problem. The second chord in the key of C major is D minor. Now, if I play the C major scale over a D minor chord, it should work because the chord comes from the scale. The problem is the melody will sound like I'm in the key of C even though I'm playing over a D minor chord. So the solution is to simply start the C major scale from the note D. If I do this, I've created a mode of the major scale, and this will be the D Dorian mode. And let me show you a pattern of D Dorian. Looks like this. So what I've done here is I've played the notes of C major, but I've started and ended on D, so it sounds like a D scale. In this case, D Dorian. Let's take a look at these notes. On the low string, I'm going to play D, E, and F. On the A string, I'm going to play G and A. D string, I'm going to play B, C, and then I'm back to the root note D. Continuing to the G string, I'll play E, F, G. On the B string, A, B, and C. And then I can play the root note again on top, D. All right, so let's check out a small solo now using the D Dorian mode. This will be played over a D minor groove. So check it out and we'll come back and break it down. All right, so let's take a look at this solo using the D Dorian mode. Remember, all of the notes belong to C major, but we're playing from D to D, so the name of the mode is D Dorian. I'm going to start on the note D, 5th fret on the A string, followed by the 3rd fret of the D string, slide into the 7th fret of the G, back to the 5th fret of the G string. So there's the first phrase. Second phrase sounds like this. So here I'm playing 5th fret on the A string, 3rd fret D string, slide into the 7th fret of the G string, and then land on the 4th fret of the G string. Now I'm going to go back to the first phrase. That was 5 on the A, 3 on the D, 7, 5 on the G. Followed by the 7th fret of the G string, 9th fret of the G string, bend up a half step from the 9th fret of the G string, and then play the 7th fret of the G string. So far we've done this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to repeat that, but rather than ending on the 7th fret of the G string, we're going to end on the 12th fret of the G string. Next phrase sounds like this. So here I'm sliding into the 12th fret of the D string, followed by the 10th fret of the G string. Slide into 14 on the G string, 13 on the B, slide from 14 back to 12 on the G string, finally landing on the 10th fret of the G string. Next phrase goes like this. So here I'm sliding into the 12th fret of the D string, playing 10 on the G, 13 on the B, bending a half step from the 12th fret of the B string, and then releasing the bend. And the final phrase of the solo, a little bit longer, goes like this. So this starts off on the 12th fret of the D string, 10th fret of the G, bending a whole step from the 12th fret of the G string, and then grabbing 12 on the B string, bending up a half step, followed by the 10th fret of the high E. Followed by 10 to 13 on the B string, followed by 10 on the high E, 10 on the B, 12 to 10 on the high E string, that's a pull-off, 13 on the B string, followed by 10 on the high E, 13 to 10 on the B string, 12 on the G string, 10 on the B string, 12, 10 on the G string, followed by 12 to 10 on the B string, 10 on the G string, 12 on the D string. That's a lot of numbers. Here's the entire solo. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to go through all of the modes in the C major scale. Just to review slightly, if we play C major from C to C, we can refer to that as the C major scale. Or we can also refer to that as the C Ionian mode. That's the Greek name for the major scale, is the Ionian mode. If we start C major from D and use it over a D minor chord, the name of that mode is D Dorian. So we're going to continue this process now. The third chord when harmonizing the major scale is a minor chord. The third chord in the key of C major is E minor. So if I play a C major scale starting and ending on E, I'm playing an E Phrygian mode. The third mode is Phrygian. In the key of C, the third mode is E Phrygian. So here's one pattern of E Phrygian. So starting from the note E, on the 12th fret of the low E string, I'm playing E, F, G. On the A string, I'm playing A, B, C. On the D string, I'm playing D, E. So there's our root note again. Continuing, I can play F. Now to the G string, I can play G and A. To the B string, B, C, and D. And then to the high E string, I can play the root note E. All of those notes come from the C major scale, but I'm starting and ending on E, and I'm going to use this scale over an E minor chord. Okay, so let's check out a small solo using the E Phrygian mode, and then we'll come back and talk about it. All right, so let's take a look at this solo using the E Phrygian mode. I've said it before, but I think it's worth repeating. E Phrygian is the third mode in the key of C major, so all of the notes come from the C major scale, but I'm basing my ideas around E and playing over an E minor sound. I'm going to start with some harmonics. 12th fret B string, 12th fret high E string. And then I'm going to play a similar harmonic idea, but this time from the 5th fret of those same two strings. Next phrase sounds like this. So on the G string, 7, 9. Strike the 9, slide up to 10, back to 9. Next phrase. Starts and ends on the note E. 7th fret A string, I'm going to play 7, 8, 10. 7 on the D. 9, 10, 9. When I get to the 9 here, I'm going to bend up a half step, release the bend, pull off to the 7th fret. 9 to 10, 5, 7. Strike the 9th fret, bend up a half step, release the bend. Strike 9 once again, pull off to 7. 10 on the A string. 7, 9, 10 on the D string. 7 on the G string, pull off quickly now, 9 to 7 on the G string, 10 on the D string, and the idea ends 8 on the B, 9 on the G. So this phrase, which starts on beat number 3, would sound like this. 1, 2, and here's the next phrase. So here I'm playing 10, 12, 13 on the B string, back to 12, 10, slide up to 12, and then strike 12 once again. Now I'm going to play 10, 12, 13, 12 on the B string, 8, slide back to 5, and then strike 5 one more time. And the final phrase of the solo. The final phrase of this E Phrygian solo starts off on the B string. I'm going to slide from 12 up to 17, back to 12. Back to the 10th fret now. 12. Strike 12 once again, slide up to 13, back to 12. So far we've done this. Now we're going to play two strings, the open E string along with the 12th fret of the B string. Strike that again, slide up to 13, back to 12, 10, 8, slide back to 5, and strike the 5th fret of the B along with the open high E string one more time. So once again, here's the final phrase. So here's the whole solo one more time. The first harmonics come in on beat number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. All right, well now we talked about the Ionian mode, which is the major scale. The second mode is Dorian. The third mode is Phrygian. So now we're up to the fourth mode, which is Lydian. The fourth chord, when we harmonize the major scale, is a major chord. We can therefore play a Lydian mode over a major chord. If we continue in the key of C, the fourth mode will be F Lydian. The fourth chord is F major. So we can play the F Lydian scale over an F major chord, and we create this Lydian sound. So first let's take a look at one pattern of an F Lydian scale. Looks like this. So let's take a look at these notes now. Starting from F, I'm playing F and G on the low E string, A, B, C on the A string, D, E, F on the D string. So that's one octave. Next string, on the G string, I'm going to play G and A. To the B string now, B, C, and D. Then I can play E and F on the high E string. So that's F Lydian. All of the notes also belong to C major, but we're starting and ending on F. And now I'm going to play a solo using the F Lydian mode. So check out the solo and then we'll come back and talk about it. All right, so let's take a look at that solo in F Lydian. Starting off on the 7th fret of the D string, 4-5-4 on the G string, 5-7 on the D, up to 5 on the G string, slide from 7 to 9, 7-5, slide 7 to 9 once again. Now we switch to the B string, 8th fret. So far we've done this. Now we can stay on the B string, 10, 8, 10, 12, 13, 12, 12, 13, 15, 12 on the high E string, back to 13 on the B string. Here's what we've done so far. And here's the next phrase. "14 on the G, 13B, 14 on the G." Now I'm going to bend up 2 times of a whole step from the 15th fret of the B string and then play 12, 13, 15 on the high E. Now we're going to do a pre-bend. I'm going to bend up a whole step from the 15th fret of the B string, strike the note, release the bend, and then play 13 to 15 on the B string. Now it's 13, slide back to 12 on the B string, 15 on the high E, 12, slide back to 10 on the B string, and this phrase ends 13 to 12 on the high E string. So once again, here's this phrase. Final phrase sounds like this. So we're going to start off on the high E string, 15, 13, 12, 13 to 12 on the high E, 15 on the B, 12 high E, 13 B, 14 on the G string, then slide into the 14th fret of the G string, 13 B, 14 G. Now bend up a whole step from the 15th fret of the B string, and then grab 12 on the high E string, 13 on the B, and the solo ends 14, 12 on the G string. So let's put all of that together now. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, everybody doing good so far? We've got the Ionian mode, Dorian mode, Phrygian mode, Lydian mode. The next mode, the 5th mode, is known as Mixolydian. The 5th chord, when harmonizing the major scale, is a major chord. If we use the diatonic seventh chords, the fifth chord is a dominant 7 chord. So it's a major triad or a dominant 7 chord. Now if we do this in the key of G, the fifth chord is G major or G7. So if I play C major from G to G, here's one pattern of G mixolydian, which I can use over a G major or G dominant 7 chord. So on the low E string, I'm going to play G and A. On the A string, we'll play B, C, and D. On the D string, E, F, G. Continuing to the G string, we can play A, B, and C. On the B string, we can play D, E, and F. And our root note G is found on the 3rd fret of the high E string. All right, so let's check out a short solo in the G mixolydian mode. All right, so let's take a look at this solo in G mixolydian. First phrase sounds like this. Starting off on the note B, 4th fret of the G string, followed by 4, 5, 7. To the D string, slide into 7, back to 5, and strike the 5th fret one more time. Move up to the 10th fret of the G string, 9th fret of the G string, bend up a half step from the 9th fret of the G string, and then slide back to the 7th fret. Next phrase. Here I'm going to start on the 7th fret of the G string, 7 to 9, 10, strike 10 again, slide back to 9, strike 9 again, strike the 10th fret, do one more time on the 10th fret, slide up to the 14th fret, strike the 14th once again, slide up to 16, and then back to 12. All right, here's the next phrase. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to start on the B string, 15 to 17. And then we're going to play a 3-note phrase 4 times. 17, pull off to 15 on the high E, followed by 15 on the B string. Same idea, but this time from the 19th fret of the high E string. Now from the 20th fret, back to the 19th, and then down to the 17th. This idea continues. Hammer on from 15 to 18 on the B string, followed by 15 on the high E string. And we're going to do that idea 3 times. Followed by 17 pull off to 15 on the B string, 17, 16 on the G string. And the final piece of this solo goes like this. So I'm going to start on the 15th fret of the B string, 15, 17, 18, 18, slide back to 17, strike 17 one more time. Then we have kind of a fast, repetitive lick. I'm going to bend up a whole step from the 18th fret of the B string and then grab 15 on the high E, pull off 18, 15 on the B, 17 on the B, bend up a half step, release the bend, pull off to 15. So that lick, once again, and we're going to do that 2 times. And the final 2 notes of the solo, 18 to 20 on the B string. So let's go back now and try and put the entire solo together. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that was a solo using the G Mixolydian mode, the 5th mode in the key of C major. So now we're up to mode number 6. The 6th mode is the Aeolian mode. Now the Aeolian mode is also known as the minor scale, the natural minor scale. There's many different minor scales. The Aeolian mode is the natural minor scale, and it's a scale that you're probably already familiar with. We've talked about that in previous lessons and just referred to it as the minor scale. So here's one pattern of the Aeolian mode. In the key of C major, the 6th note is A. Therefore, the 6th mode in the key of C major is A Aeolian. So here's A Aeolian. Works great over an A minor chord. A minor being the 6th chord in the key of C major. And I just ran right up the scale, A, B, C on the bottom string, D, E, F on the A string, G and A on the D string, B, C, D on the G string, E, F, and G on the B string, A on the high E string. So that's the A Aeolian mode. Sometimes it's also referred to as the A natural minor scale, and people usually just say A minor for short. So we've worked a lot with that scale in previous lessons, so I'm not going to do an example solo in A Aeolian. Instead, I'm going to jump to the next mode, which is the Locrian mode. This is the final mode, the 7th mode, and this is the least common of all the modes. When harmonizing the major scale, the 7th chord is a diminished chord if it's a triad, or a minor 7-flat 5 chord if we play the diatonic 7th chord. So here's one pattern of a B Locrian mode. So let's take a look at the notes of this scale. Remember, all of this comes from C major, so it's the same notes, but now we're starting on B. On the 6th string, the low E string, I'm going to play B, C, and D. On the next string, A string, I'm going to play E, F, G. On the D string, I'll play A, B, C. On the G string, D, E, F. On the B string, I'm going to play G and A. Then I have the root note B on the 7th fret of the high E string. So that's one pattern of B Locrian. All right, so let's check out a sample solo using the B Locrian mode. All right, so that was an example of a solo in B Locrian. Now, did that sound like C major to you? It doesn't sound anything like C major. It's very interesting, but I'm using all of the notes from the C major scale, but I'm really emphasizing B and playing over a groove that's in B, based in B. So let's take a look at the solo. I'm starting off on the 9th fret of the D string, followed by 7 on the G string, 6 on the B, open high E, then back to the 6th fret of the B string, 7th fret of the G string. Then I'm going to repeat that, but I'm going to add the 9th fret of the D string 2 times here. So here's what we've learned so far. And then we're going to repeat that. And here's the next phrase. So I'm going to jump from the 10th fret of the G string up to the 7th fret of the high E string. 10, pull off to 7 on the G. 9 on the D string, back to 10 on the G string. Strike the 10th fret of the G string one more time. Strike it again, this time pull off to the 7th fret. 9 on the D, back to 7 on the G. So far we've done this. Now to the D string, 9, 7. Pull off 9 to 7, 2 times on the 9th fret. So I'm really centering my ideas around B. Here's the next phrase. Here we're going to start on the G string, hammer on from 7 to 10, 7 on the high E, pull off 10 to 7 on the G string, 9 on the D, 9, 7 on the G. Now to the D string, 9, 7 on the G, 9 on the D, 8 on the A string, 3 more notes to go for this phrase, 7, 9 on the D, And we're going to end this phrase on the 8th fret of the A string. Here's the next phrase. Ten to 12 on the B string, 10 to 12 on the E string, shift positions, 7 on the high E, 10 B, 10 G, back to 7 on the high E. Now once again we're going to play 7 on the high E, 10 B, 10 G, 2 times on the 7th fret of the high E string now. Now once again, 7 on the high E, and we're going to land on 10 on the G string. So that whole phrase sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And here's the final phrase. On the high E string, we're going to play on the 10th fret, followed by the 10th fret of the B string. Strike the 10th fret of the B string one more time, back to 10 on the high E. Now, 10th fret of the B string 3 times. So far we've done this. Now I'm going to hammer on 9 to 10 on the G string, followed by 7 on the high E. 10, 9, 7 on the G. Repeat those 6 notes. Followed by 9, 7 on the G string. Slide 9 to 10 on the G string and land 7 on the G string to end the solo. So that final phrase, once again, sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's play the whole solo. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so there was a sample solo using the B Locrian mode. And now we've talked about all 7 major scale modes. And hopefully you can hear that although all of the notes come from the C major scale, by the time we were using the B Locrian mode, it doesn't sound anything like C major anymore, because we're not playing over a C major chord and we're not emphasizing the note C. So you should have memorized the order of the modes, and let's review that. Ionian is the first, that's the same as the major scale. Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, which is the same as the natural minor scale, and Locrian. So if you can play each of those modes, you've memorized the order of the modes, and you can play a few licks from each of the modes, then you got a good grip on the modes. So make sure you take advantage of the backing tracks that are included with this DVD and have fun with those. Try some of these licks, try some of your own, and there's a chapter on the modes. Once you've absorbed this information, you're ready to move on. In this chapter, I'm going to talk about the harmonic minor scale. The harmonic minor scale is the same as the natural minor scale, but with a raised 7th. So let's take a look at the scale. Here's A harmonic minor. And here are the notes. On the low E string, I'm playing A, B, C. On the A string, I'm playing D, E, and F. Now I'm going to jump all the way to the note G sharp, found on the 6th fret of the D string, and then I'm back to the root note A on the 7th fret of the D string. So there's one octave of A harmonic minor. We can continue the scale. On the G string, play B, C, and D. On the B string, we'll play E and F. On the high E string, G sharp and A. So now the question is, why harmonic minor? Why is this a great scale to know? And the answer is that often when playing in minor keys, when playing minor songs, let's say if we're in the key of A minor, when we get to the 5 chord, often the 5 chord is a major triad or a dominant 7 chord. For example, A minor to E7. Sounds great, right? That E7 chord really takes us back to the A minor chord. It's a very strong resolution from the E7 back to the A minor. Now, both of these chords do not belong to the natural minor scale. They belong to the harmonic minor scale. If we were to stay within the natural minor scale, that E chord would be a minor chord. It doesn't sound bad, but it doesn't have that pull from the E chord back to the A chord. You can just hear this chord wanting to go back to. And that's where the harmonic minor scale really serves its purpose, over the 5 chord in a minor key. So check out this next solo. It's in A minor. I'm going to use the A harmonic minor scale over the E7 chord. So we'll check it out and then come back and talk about it. Now before we get into the solo, let's take a look at the chords that we're soloing over. Always a good idea. Starting off with 2 bars of A minor, 2 bars of F, 2 bars of D minor, 2 bars of E7. So here I'm soloing with the A natural minor scale for the A minor, F, and D minor chords. And then for the E7 chord, I'm going to play A harmonic minor. Okay? So here's the first lick. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty simple, just using the A minor pentatonic scale here, starting off 5 to 7 on the D string, followed by 5 on the G, 7, 5 on the D. At this point, the F chord comes in. I'm going to play 5 on the D string, 7 on the A string, 5, 7 on the D, hammer on 5 to 7 on the G, then play 7 to 5 on the G. And that's the first phrase. Now the D minor chord comes around, and here's our next phrase. Starting off on the 7th fret of the D string, 5 on the G, 5 hammer on to 7 on the G, 5 on the B, 7, 5 on the G, back to 7 on the D, 5 G, 2 times on the 7th fret of the G string, strike that one more time, 5 on the B, 7, 5 on the G string. Here's the phrase we've just learned. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now the E chord comes in, and I'm going to use notes from the A harmonic minor scale. So here's the lick. 1, 2, 3, 4. So starting on the G string, 10, 9, 9, 10, 9, 9 on the B string, 13, 12, 12 on the B string, 13, 12, 12 on the high E string, 17, 16 on the high E, back to 17, up to 19, bend up a half step and then release the bend. So once again, the whole phrase over the E7 chord that uses the A harmonic minor scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the next phrase. 1, 2, 3. So starting on beat number 4, I'm going to play on the 10th fret of the B string 2 times, 13 to 10, and then bend up 2 whole steps from the 13th fret of the B string without releasing the bend, so upwards only. Back down to the 10th fret on the B string, bend up a whole step, release the bend, pull off to the 8th fret, back to the 10th fret on the B string. Shift positions once again. I'm going to bend up a whole step from the 8th fret of the B string, release the bend, then play 5, 8 on the B string. 7th fret of the G string, similar idea, bend up a whole step, release the bend, back to 5 on the G string. Now I'm going to bend up a whole step from the 7th fret of the G string, then play 5 on the B, 5 on the high E. 6, 5 on the B, 7, 5 on the G. So once again, here's this phrase which starts on beat number 4. 1, 2, 3. At this point, the D minor chord comes in, and here's the next phrase. So 7 on the D string, 5, 7 on the G string. Bend up a half step from the 5th fret of the B string, release the bend, and then play 7, 5 on the G string. Once again, play 5 to 7 on the G string, 5 on the B, half step bend from the 5th fret of the B string, release the bend, and then play 7 to 5 on the G string. Here's the phrase we've just learned. And our final phrase, which is played over the E7 chord, uses the A harmonic minor scale and goes like this. So starting on the high E string, I'm going to play 12, 13, 12, 10, 12, 10, B string 13, E string 10. Now to the B string, 12, 13, 12, 10, 12, 10, G string 13, back to 10 on the B string. Now to the G string, 10, 13, 10, 9, 10, 9, D string 12, back to 9 on the G string. And the phrase ends D string 12, 10, 12, 9, 10, 9, 11, 12. So here's that whole run over the E7 chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here's the whole solo once again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's an example of how to use the harmonic minor scale. In this chapter, we're going to talk about the melodic minor scale. Now, we just got finished talking about the harmonic minor scale. And while the harmonic minor scale fixes one of the problems with the natural minor scale, it creates another. That step and a half interval between 6 and 7 makes the scale sound very exotic, which can be great sometimes, but it's limiting in its usage. So the melodic minor scale fixes this problem by raising up the 6th as well as the 7th. So here's one pattern, C melodic minor. So when compared to the natural minor scale, we've raised the 6th and the 7th. So let's take a look at the notes now. On the low E string, I'm playing C, D, and E flat, so this is a C melodic minor scale. On the A string, I'm playing F and G. On the D string, I'm going to play A, B, and then back to the root note C. Here's what we've done so far. Now to the G string, D, E flat, F. On the B string, we'll play G and A. On the high E string, we can play B, and then we're back to the root note C. So today we're going to talk about the two most common usages for the melodic minor scale. Interestingly enough, neither one of these will start from the root note of the scale. We're going to learn modes of the melodic minor scale. The first instance, we're going to play over a functioning dominant chord. This is a dominant chord that resolves back to a 1 chord. So check out the example solo, and then we'll come back and talk about it some more. So this was an example of using melodic minor over a functioning dominant chord. So let's take a look at the chords. This is in the key of E major. I started off with an E major 7 chord, C sharp minor 7, F sharp minor 9. In case you're not familiar with that form of the F sharp minor 9, I'm playing on the 9th fret of the A string, 7th fret of the D, 9th fret of the G, 7th fret of the B string. Followed by B7 sharp 5. The B7 sharp 5 chord is formed like this: 7th fret on the E string and on the D string, 8th fret on the G string, 8th fret on the B string. So this chord progression in the key of E major is a 1, 6, 2, 5. And then we're going back to 1. So the B7 sharp 5 chord is a functioning dominant chord because I'm going back to the 1 chord. So over this chord, we can do some interesting things because of the fact that it resolves back to the 1 chord. And one of the things that we can do is play a mode of the melodic minor scale. And here we're playing the 7th mode of the melodic minor scale. So over this B7 sharp 5 chord, I'm playing C melodic minor, and another name for the C melodic minor scale when starting from B is the B altered scale. B altered is the 7th mode of C melodic minor. So I was playing E major for the first 3 chords, and B altered, which is the same as C melodic minor, for the B7 sharp 5 chord. Okay, so let's take a look now at the solo itself. The first line sounds like this. So we're starting off with E major. I'm going to play on the 12th fret of the high E string 3 times, followed by the 11th fret, to the B string 12, 9, 9, 12, slide to 14, pull off to 12, strike 12 one more time, to the G string 9, 11, B string 9, hammer on to 10, pull off to 9, back to the G string 11th fret, 9th fret on the B string, and after this we're going to be playing over the B7 sharp 5 chord. So far we've been playing in the key of E major. And our next lick is going to be using the B altered scale, same as C melodic minor, and sounds like this. So here I'm sliding from 8 back to 7 on the high E string, and then playing 8, 10, 8 on the high E string, 10, 8 on the B string, 10, 8, slide back to 7 on the G string, 10 on the D string, 7 on the G string, and we end on 9 on the D string. And this short solo has 4 phrases altogether. So that's the first phrase. Let's review that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the second idea. 1, 2, 3. So we're starting off in E major, 9th fret D string, slide 11 to 13, do that 2 times, 12 on the B string, 9 on the G string, 9, 11 on the G string, hammer on 9 to 10 on the B string, back to 9 on the B string, 11 on the G string. All this so far has been in E major. And now I'm going to play from the B altered scale. So we're starting on the 8th fret of the B string, 8, slide back to 7 on the G string, 9, 10 on the D string, hammer on 8 to 9 on the G string, and strike the 9th fret on the G string one more time. And this will be the second run of the solo. 1, 2, 3. Here's the third part of the solo. 1, 2, 3, 4. Starting on the B string, I'm going to play 9 to 12, E string 9, 11, 12 on the B string, 9 on the E, to the B string 9, 12. So far we've done this. 11 on the G, 9B, 9 on the G. So far we've done this. Now I'm going to pull off, hammer on 9, 8, 9 on the G string, 9, 7, 9 on the B string, 12, 9, 12 on the B string, up to 9 on the high E string. So far everything has been in E major. Now comes the B7 sharp 5 chord. And the idea that we're going to play from the B altered scale goes like this. So I'm going to start on the high E string, 8 to 7, 8 on the B string, 8, 7 on the G string, 10 on the D, 8, 7 on the G, 10, 9, 10 on the D string, and the final 2 notes, 7 on the G, 9 on the D string. So let's put that together now. Here's the third idea of the solo. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here's the fourth and final idea. 1, 2. So here I'm going to start on beat number 3. On the B string, play 9 to 12. 11th fret high E string, play that 2 times. To the B string, 12, 9, back to 12. B string, 9, hammer on to 10. Back to 9. 9 on the G string. So far we've done this. 1, 2, here comes the B7 sharp 5 chord, and here's our altered lick. So starting off on the B string, 8th fret, G string, 8th fret, jump to the A string, 10, D string, 9, 7, 10 on the G, 8 on the B string, 7, 10, 7 on the high E string, 8 on the B, 10, 9 on the G string. So once again, here's the fourth and final idea. We start on beat number 3. 1, 2, The other common usage of the melodic minor scale is over a chord that is not a functioning chord, a chord that does not resolve back to the 1 chord. In this instance, the best way to use the melodic minor scale is to play the 4th mode of the melodic minor scale, and this is known as the Lydian dominant scale or Lydian flat 7 scale. So we're going to do a little solo using E Lydian flat 7. This is the 4th mode of B melodic minor. So here's one pattern of E Lydian flat 7. And let's take a look at those notes. On the low E string, I'm playing E to F sharp. On the A string, G sharp, A sharp, B. On the D string, C sharp, D, and E. On the G string, F sharp and G sharp. 4 notes on the B string. I'm going to play A sharp, B, C sharp, D. And then we have the root note E on the high E string, 12th fret. All right, so now I'm going to play a solo using the E Lydian dominant mode, which is the 4th mode of the melodic minor scale. So E Lydian dominant contains the same notes as B melodic minor. So check out the solo and then we'll come back and break it down. So this was an example of the Lydian flat 7 scale. In this case, we're playing E Lydian flat 7. It's the 4th mode of the melodic minor scale. So this is the 4th mode of B melodic minor. Sometimes Lydian flat 7 is also called the Lydian dominant scale. Okay, so let's check out the first idea. Sounds like this. So here I'm going to start off by bending a half step from the 14th fret of the B string. After I do the bend, I'll strike the note again, release the bend, strike the note, followed by the 12th fret of the B string. Continuing on the B string, 11, 12, 14, 15. So far we've done this. Now we repeat this, but when we get to the last note, the 15th fret, we're going to bend up a whole step and then come back down and strike the 15th fret of the B string without the bend. And here's the next phrase. It starts on the end of 3. 1, 2, 3. So starting on the B string, 17, 19, 17. 18th fret of the high E string, bend up a half step, release the bend, and then play 19 on the B string. 16 high E, 17 B. 14 high E, 15 on the B. 12 on the high E string, 14 on the B. Now same note, 14th fret of the B string, bend up a half step, release the bend. 11 on the B, 14, 12, strike the 12th fret once again. So the phrase we've just learned once again sounds like this. And the final piece of this solo goes like this. So this phrase starts on the B string, 12, 14, 12. Bend up a half step from the 14th fret, release the bend, and then play 12, 14. 11, 12. 9, 11. 7. Back to the 15th fret of the B string, bend up a whole step, and then grab 12, 14, 16 on the high E string. Followed by 18, and then bend up a whole step from the 19th fret and release the bend and strike the note one more time. So that's an example of how to use the E Lydian dominant scale. So to review this chapter, we've learned how to play the melodic minor scale, and we've talked about two of the most common usages of the melodic minor scale, neither of which start from the root note. The first place that we can use melodic minor is over a functioning dominant chord, a dominant chord that goes back to a 1 chord. Over that dominant chord, we're going to play the altered scale, which is the 7th mode of melodic minor. For example, B altered is the same as C melodic minor. They contain the same notes. And the second place we can use the melodic minor scale is when we play over a dominant chord that does not go back to a 1 chord. They call this a static dominant chord. In this case, we use the Lydian dominant scale, which is the 4th mode of melodic minor. So for example, E Lydian dominant is the same as B melodic minor. So if you've absorbed all of that information and can play the melodic minor scale, the altered scale, the Lydian dominant scale, have some fun with the backing tracks on that, and once you can use that, play a few licks, then you're ready to move on. Have some fun with it. In this chapter, we're going to talk about modal interchange. Modal interchange occurs when a song that's in a major key borrows chords from its parallel minor key. So in other words, if I have a song that's in A major and I take some chords from A minor, that would be an example of modal interchange. And that's exactly what I'm going to do now. I'm going to start off in A major, and I'm going to switch between A major and A minor. So check out the solo, and then we'll come back and talk about it. All right, so let's talk about the chords. The first chord I'm playing is an A major 7 chord. This is the first chord in the key of A. Just in case you're not familiar with this voicing, I'm playing the open A string, 2nd fret D string, 1st fret G string, 2nd fret B string, high E string open. So that's the one chord in the key of A major. So over this chord, I'm playing some notes from the A major scale. The second chord of the song is an F chord. I'm actually playing F major 7 with a raised 11. The chord sounds like this. 1st fret low E string, 2nd fret D string, 2nd fret G string, top 2 strings are open. So I have 2 measures of the A major 7 chord followed by 2 measures of the F major 7 sharp 11 chord. I'm playing notes from the A major scale over the A major 7 chord, notes from the A minor scale over the F major 7 sharp 11 chord. So this is an example of modal interchange. I'm switching between A major and A minor. So after going back and forth between those 2 chords 3 times, I'm getting to the next section of the song. It builds on a G chord and an F chord. These are 2 chords that also belong to the A minor scale. So I'm going to use A minor over these 2 chords. And the next section, where it gets a little heavier, I'm playing A major, C major, D major, F, G. So over the A major chord, we're going to play notes from the A major scale. Over the C major chord, this comes from the A minor scale. Over the D major chord, this comes from the A major scale. And then F to G, I'll go back to A minor. So A major, A minor, A major, A minor. And then the song ends F and G before starting all over again. Okay, so this is an example of modal interchange. I'm switching between A major and A minor. So let's take a look at the solo now. Here's the first phrase. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. So this is played over the A major 7 chord, so I'm thinking A major here, starting with the note A, 10th fret on the B string, striking that 3 times, on the 3rd time sliding back to the 9th fret, striking the 9th fret again, sliding back to the 5th fret, striking the 5th fret one more time. The next chord is the F chord. I'm going to play a similar phrase, but this time use notes from the A minor scale. So here I'm starting off on the 8th fret of the B string, striking 3 times, on the 3rd time sliding back to the 5th fret. Strike the 5th fret again, slide to the 3rd fret. Strike the 3rd fret, slide back to the 5th fret. Our next phrase comes from A major. So I'm playing 2 to 4 on the D string, 2, 4, slide to 6 on the G string, 5th fret on the B string 2 times, hammer on 5 to 7 on the B string, back to 5 on the B, slide 4 to 6, back to 4, and finally land on the 2nd fret of the G string. So that whole phrase starts on the and of 2 and sounds like this. 1, 2. The next idea comes from the A minor scale, is played over the F major 7 sharp 11 chord, and sounds like this. This is somewhat similar rhythmically to the previous phrase. I'm going to start on the 7th fret of the D string, 5 to 7 on the G, strike 7 again, slide to 9, 8th fret of the B string 2 times, hammer on to the 10th fret, back to the 8th fret. Now I'm going to do a pre-bend. I'll bend up a whole step from the 7th fret of the G string, release the bend, and then play the 5th fret of the G string. So here's the whole phrase once again. This one also starts on the and of 2. 1, 2. Here the song moves back to A major. Over the A major 7 chord, I'm going to play an A major 7 arpeggio. It sounds like this. So I'm going to pull off from 5 to 4 on the high E string, 5 on the B, 4 on the G, 6, hammer on to 7, pull back off to 6 on the D string, 7 on the A, 4, 7, 4 on the A string, to the low E string, 5, 4, 5, 4, 7 on the A, and then 6 on the D string. I'm going to bend up a half step and back down. The next phrase is played over the F major 7 sharp 11 chord, so I'm using notes from the A minor scale. This phrase starts on the and of 2 and sounds like this. 1, 2. Starting on the A string, I'm going to hammer on from 7 to 8. 10, pull off to 7. Now I'm going to slide up to 9. Hammer on to 10. 12, 9, slide to 10 on the G string. 12 on the G string. 13, 10 on the B string. Now at this point, slide to 12. 13 on the B. 15, 13, 12 on the high E string. 2 more notes, 13 on the B string, 12 on the G string. So the whole phrase, once again, 1, 2. Now at this point of the song, we're leading into the second section, and we do this by playing a G chord to an F chord. So here the phrase is going to be played using the A minor scale, and it sounds like this. So 7th fret on the D string, 5 to 7 on the G. When I get to the 7th fret, I'll bend upwards a whole step and then play 5, 6, 5 on the B string. Back to the G string, 7 to 5. So that whole phrase starts on beat number 3 and sounds like this. 1, 2. And now we're into the second half of the song where we're playing over this rhythm. So we're starting with an A major chord. So I'm going to emphasize this by playing the note C sharp on the 6th fret of the G string. This note C sharp is the major third of A. So I strike that one time and then strike it again, followed by the 7th fret of the G string. 9th fret, back to the 5th fret. So let's take a look at that first phrase. I'm starting with C sharp, the major third of A. It's right there. If you play that A major bar chord, you can see that note within the chord. So then I go to C on the 5th fret of the G string. Why do I go to C? C would be the minor third of A because I'm switching from A major to A minor. Modal interchange. A major followed by A minor. So I play that C natural note when the chord is playing the C chord. The rhythm went from A to C. Now I'm going to slide into the 9th fret of the G string, play 7, 5, 7, back to the G string, 5, 7, 5, 6, 5 on the B, 7 on the G, 5 on the B, 7, 5 on the G, 7 on the D string. So let's play that phrase. Once again, this starts on the downbeat of 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll play through the rest of the solo now and then we'll break it down. So I'm starting on C sharp, the major third of A, 6th fret of the G string, 6, 7, 9 on the G, back to 5, slide to 9, 7, 5, 7, slide to 11, strike 11 once again, strike it again, and then slide up to 12. Strike the 12th fret, slide to the 14th fret. Strike 14, slide to 16. Back to 14. Now 14, 16, 17, 16. All that works with the A minor scale. And the final phrase, I'm going to do a pre-bend from the 19th fret of the G string. So I'm going to bend up a whole step, strike the note, release the bend, followed by the 17th fret of the G string. Now I'm going to strike the 17th fret of the G string and slide up a half step. So I'm going to end on the note C sharp, the major third of A. So the minor third of A is C, that's a note from the A minor scale. The major third of A is C sharp, that's a note from the A major scale. So here's that entire final phrase once again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's an example of how to use modal interchange. And just to review, the concept of modal interchange is when we have a song that's in a major key and then we borrow chords from its parallel minor key. For example, if we have a song in A major, you borrow chords from A minor. Modal interchange can also work the other way around, but it's much less common. If we have a song in a minor key, for example, A minor, and then we switch briefly to A major and then go back to A minor. It's much more common to start with a major scale, for example, A major, borrow chords from A minor, and then go back to A major. So that's modal interchange. As always, mess around with the backing track, try out some of these ideas, or feel free to come up with your own. For the final chapter of this DVD, we're going to talk about the diminished scale. The diminished scale is unique in two ways. One, it's an 8-note scale, and the other way it's unique is that it's a symmetrical scale, meaning that it's made up of a series of repetitive intervals. The diminished scale has two unique functions. One, it sounds great over diminished 7 chords, and the other function is we use it over altered functioning dominant chords. So let's take a look at the scale. Here's one pattern of C diminished. So this formula is whole step, half step. Starting on the note C, we play C, followed by D, E flat. Those are the first 3 notes I'm playing on the low E string. C, D, E flat. On the A string, I'm going to play F, G flat, A flat. Now to the D string, I'm going to play A, B, and then I'm back to the root note C. So there's 1 octave of the C diminished scale. Continuing to the G string, I'll play D, E flat, F. To the B string, G flat, A flat, and A. Then on the high E string, I'll play B and C. So that scale sounds great over diminished 7 chords. The other usage of the scale is when we play it over functioning altered dominant chords. When we do this, we use the other form of the diminished scale in which we can start with a half step followed by a whole step. In this case, the scale is referred to as the dominant diminished scale because we're going to play it over dominant chords. So here's one pattern of B dominant diminished, It is the exact same as C diminished, but I'm going to start on the note B. So here's B dominant diminished. So now I'm going to demonstrate how we can use this dominant diminished scale. So check out the solo and then we'll come back and talk about it some more. All right, so let's talk about the chords that we're soloing over. This progression is very similar to something we were playing earlier when we were talking about the melodic minor scale. Here we're going to play E major 7, C sharp minor 7, F sharp minor 9, followed by B7 flat 9. If you're not familiar with that B7 flat 9 chord, here's what I'm doing. I'm playing the root note B on the 7th fret of the low E string, and I'm using my thumb to get that B note. Then I'm playing on the 7th fret of the D string, 8th fret of the G, 7th fret of the B string, 8th fret on the high E string. So it's a B7 chord. When I add the C on top, it becomes B7 flat 9. So this is a 1, 6, 2, 5 progression in the key of E. The 5 chord, the B7 flat 9, is an altered dominant chord because it goes back to the 1 chord, the E major chord. It's known as a functioning dominant chord. So over that functioning dominant chord, the B7 flat 9, I'm going to solo using the dominant diminished scale, that half-step, whole-step form of the diminished scale that we talked about earlier. For the first 3 chords, I'm going to use E major. So I'm going to use the E major scale, first 3 chords. For the B7 flat 9, I'm going to play B dominant diminished. Okay, so let's take a look at these ideas. There's 4 separate ideas that go to make up this solo. So here's the first one. 1, 2, 3. Starts off nice and easy. I'm going to play on the 4th fret of the G string, 5, 7 on the B, followed by 3, slide to 4 on the high E string, 5 on the B string, strike that again, hammer onto the 7th fret, to the high E string, 7, 5, 4. At this point, the B7 flat 9 chord comes in. I'm going to slide from 7 to 8 on the high E string. Then I'm going to slide 4 to 5 on the high E string. 7, pull off to 4. Back to 5 on the B string. And here's the solo over the second round of chords. 1, 2, 3, 4. Starting on the G string, I'm going to hammer on from 8 to 9. High E string 7, 9, 7 on the B string, 9, 7 on the high E, 9, pull off to 7 on the B string, 9 on the G, 8, hammer onto 9 on the G string, 7 B, slide into the 11th fret of the D string, 9, 11 on the G. So far we've done this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And at this point, the B7 flat 9 chord comes in. And here's the run using the B dominant diminished scale. So I'm going to start off on the high E string, hammer on and pull off, 7, 8, 7, 10 on the B string, 7 on the high E, 9, hammer on 10 on the B string, 7 on the high E. So far we've done this. 9th fret B string, down to 10 on the G, 7, 9 on the B, 10 on the G, 7 B, 8 G, and we end 10 to 9 on the D string. So slowly, here's the run using the B dominant diminished scale. And here's the whole round of the solo. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's take a look at the solo over the third round. 1, 2, so this starts on the and of 2. I'm going to pull off from 9 to 7 on the B string, 9, 8, 9 on the G, 7 on the high E, 9, 7, 9 on the B, 9, 7 on the high E, 9, slide to 11 on the E, 12, 9 on the B. Strike the 9 once again on the B string, slide into the 12th fret of the high E, back to the 11th fret, 12 B, 11 G, 9, 12 on the B. Shift positions now, pull off 9 to 7 on the B, 7 high E, back to 9 on the B. Here's what we've done so far. 1, 2. At this point, we're going to use the dominant diminished scale, and here's the line. 8, 8, 5 on the high E string, and I'm descending a diminished 7 arpeggio here. 7 on the B string, 8, 5 on the G string, 7 on the D string. So far we've done this. And we end 5, slide back to 4 on the G string. So let's put this whole round together once again, starting on the and of 2. 1, 2. Now let's take a look at the fourth and final round of the solo. This starts on the and of 3. 1, 2, 3. So here we're going to start on the B string, 9 to 12, 9, 11, 11 on the high E, 12, 12 on the B string, 9 two times on the B, 11, 9, 11 on the G, 9 two times on the B, 11, 9, 11 on the G. And at this point, the dominant diminished scale run will come in. So let's review what we've done up to this point. 1, 2, 3. And here's the run over the B7 flat 9 chord. Starting on the G string, 7 to 8, 7 on the high E, 10, 9, 10 on the B, 8, 7 on the high E, 9 on the B, 7 on the E, 9 on the B, 7 to 9 on the B string, finally ending on the 9th fret of the G string. So once again, here's the entire 4th round of the solo. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so in this chapter we've talked about the diminished scale. And just to summarize, here are the things that you should get out of this chapter. First thing is, the diminished scale is a symmetrical scale consisting of 8 notes. The formula is whole step, half step, whole step, half step, all the way on up. When we play the scale in that form, it works great over diminished 7 chords, and that's the diminished scale. Because of the symmetrical pattern of the scale, we can also play half step, whole step, half step, whole step, all the way on up. And when we play in this form, the scale is known as the dominant diminished scale, and we use this to create an altered sound over functioning dominant chords. Okay? So if you've got that, try messing around with the backing track, try some of these ideas that I just showed you, try coming up with your own, but definitely check out the backing track and experiment. So there's a little information on the diminished scale. Well, here we are at the end of the DVD. What I've tried to present in this series of harmony and theory lessons is a practical, hands-on approach to harmony and theory. The study can be endlessly complex, but hopefully this will allow you to get a more hands-on approach that will help not only your songwriting, but it can help your ear training and your just overall approach to music. But through it all, the most important thing is to never lose sight of that inspiration that attracted you to the instrument in the first place. The rest is just icing on the cake. So hopefully you've got something out of these lessons. I know I've enjoyed teaching them to you, and I hope to see you again in the future. Thanks for watching.